Hello.
Hello. Welcome back to Liverpool, USA. Um, this is a best friends podcast because we're best friends.
Yeah,
And today we are talking about music again, our favorite thing to do.
of course.
And we originally thought, okay, let's just talk about our top 10 favorite albums. And that
Of
task
all time, like our top
of all
albums
time.
of our whole life thus far.
Yeah. And of course, that task was too difficult for us. So
Yeah.
we both made extensive lists. um yeah, we both made extensive lists, and so we decided that instead of just talking about our top 10 albums, we'd actually talk about our top 20 albums
Yeah.
over the course of the next two episodes. So this week we're going to talk about the bottom 10 of the top 10, so numbers 20 through 11. So we'll start from the bottom, the 20 spot number 20, and work our way up to 11. And then next podcast we'll do the actual top 10. And I know we both also have multiple honorable mentions, or yeah,
I have so many honorable mentions. I don't even have them written down. Like I made my list, which I finally narrowed down. And then there were just so many other ones. Apparently I'm a big fan of albums in their entirety as an experience.
Me too.
And so there are so many that I want to be on this list, but I'm like, no, I need to measure. I had my own measurement system of how I decided. And I was like, I'm keeping this. I'm not adding any more. It's at 30 and I'm not adding any more. This is the top 30. There are other albums that I love and that I would recommend and that I enjoy in their entirety, but these are the top.
Yeah. I made a list of 20, and then that was kind of my starting point. Is I made 20, and then I was like, okay, I already have like 10 extra, because I was operating under the assumption that we were just doing the top 10. So I was like, oh my god, I already have 10 extra, so I'm gonna have to like do this. And then I kept thinking of more and like kind of writing them in the margins and being like, okay, am I gonna like bump this up into, and then I was like even thinking about bumping things into the top 20 and like changing things around, and I was like, oh my god, how am I gonna even get to top 10? So I'm very glad that we decided to do this May Madness album ranking extravaganza.
Yes, exactly.
But yeah, so I don't have quite 30, but I think I have like 27 or something.
Oh yeah. I started out with like maybe 35. I just was like writing them out in my phone on little notes. I was going through all my albums. I was talking to my sister because we have very shared, living experience. And so I'm like, what are the albums? Because this isn't just like right now. This is like of all time. So I'm like, what were the albums that were significant to me growing up, when I was younger? And I started out with maybe like 35, and then I wrote down 33, and I was like, God, I can't pick 10. And so what made me feel better is I ranked all 33 by vaguely, of course, this is not, it can change. Everything is up or down a little bit. It's pretty vaguely, where it is.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. And then after ranking all 33, I narrowed it down to 30 exactly. And then those are kind of like, of course, they could be up or down a little bit or whatever. But just like right now, how I'm feeling, this is it. And so that was my process.
Me too. Yeah, my top 20 are ranked. My other ones are not exactly ranked. They're just kind of not in the top 20, but they're still written down on this document, and so we'll save those for the end. Your bottom 10 out of 30, and then my 7 randos can go at the end. But yeah, I think we'll do this the same way we did our artist ranking episode. Where, and I'm actually very interested to see if we have any overlap.
I know. I feel like we probably will, but we'll see.
I mean, out of our top 20, there's a couple. But when I was first looking at my top 10, I was like, I think we might have one album in common. which is foreshadowing for the top 10, but that's not this week.
Yeah. Okay, so we should get into this. Should we just go?
We should, because I know we're just going to talk forever about it. So, yeah, I'll just say what my number 20 spot is and we'll go back and forth.
Okay.
So coming in at number 20 is the album All Hail West Texas by the Mountain Goats.
Ah, okay. So when did you get into the Mountain Goats and why this album specifically?
I listened to some of their discography in high school. It was very limited. I only knew like a couple of songs by them in high school. And I was not really that aware of anything else by them. Like I knew like, 4 songs maybe, and they were all from like a different album actually. But I kind of got into them and then I kind of like forgot about them because the way I listened to music in high school was very chaotic. Like I did not know what artists I was listening to. I did not keep track of things. Like I was kind of a Pandora listener. And so I just sort of knew what songs sounded like, but I probably couldn't tell you what they were called, who sang them, what other songs that I knew were by that same artist, like anything like that. So that was like my intro to the Mountain Goats. And then later, like in college at some point, I kind of had this like renaissance of like remembering about the Mountain Goats. I was like, oh my God, they exist and they're good. And so then I started listening to them more and like actually listening to the full discography. And then I saw them live my senior year of college. And before I saw them live, I like listened to their discography a lot, because that's what you do before you see a concert. And then I was like really into them. And this album is interesting because I don't think it's their most popular album. And they have like an enormous discography, like it's absurd.
Yeah.
But there's like 3 songs on this album that I think are like some of the best Mountain Goats songs. And since we're talking about albums, not artists, albums, this album has a really specific theme and it's done as a whole, like as kind of not a thought experiment, like that's not the word I'm looking for, but it's like its own like themed concept album, and I really like when artists do that. So that is All Hail West Texas by the Mountain Goats. Is like, it is such a concept album and I love it for that.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
And then okay, so my 20, actually, before I say it, I did want to include what I just thought of, which was part of my process, is that when I picked these albums, I was thinking more about the album in its entirety and that experience specifically and its significance to me, not necessarily like there are some albums where like I really, really love 1 or 2 songs, like maybe my favorite song by that artist is on that album, but it's not necessarily on this list because it was more to me about the experience of the album as a whole and not necessarily like one song on it or whatever. So
me too. I did the same thing. That is like a very specific note about my albums that are on this list as well, is that it's not about it's definitely about the album experience. Yes.
Yeah. And with that, my album that is at number 20, well, loosely, is Foster the People's Torches.
Wow, okay.
Yeah. I was really into, I think it was when it came out and that Pumped Up Kick song was on the radio all the time. And Rich actually bought the album, I think, like from Best Buy or whatever. And I ended up with it. And I listened to it all that. I don't even know what year that was. Was I in junior high or high school? I think I was in high school. And I loved that album. It was when I had a little like boombox in my room, and it had a CD player and a tape player in it, and I used to just play CDs like over and over again. And this was one of those CDs. I loved Foster the People, specifically that CD, so much during that time.
Wow.
It was very significant for me. And yeah, this was in high school because they came to Portland on tour for this album, and it was to the what's it called? It's a really small venue, and it has like the name of a tree, Doug Fir.
The Doug Fir, yeah.
Yeah. But it was a 21 and up event, and I was not 21. So
Tragic.
I couldn't go. Yeah. And then I remember their next album came out after that, and it absolutely, I like didn't, I think I own it, but I didn't like it at all. I don't even remember it because I think I listened to it like once and I was like, nope, this doesn't hit the same. But yeah, Foster the People's Torches, that was big for me. I love that album.
I don't think I know any other songs by Foster the People besides Pumped Up Kicks.
There's one that might be familiar to you because I swear it was in a commercial. Like a car commercial or something, because I remember hearing it and I was like, oh, I know this song too. But yeah, I love that album.
Wow. Okay. I feel like I'm gonna come away from these 2 podcasts with a lot of like listening homework, you know, like I'm gonna need to go and like listen to a bunch of these.
Yeah.
Okay, my number 19, which, you know, we couldn't go very far without running into a Wonder Years album. But my number 19 is a little bit of a cheat because it's actually 2 albums, but it's the Burst and Decay EPs by the Wonder Years.
Oh, okay.
And I feel like I said this on the Wonder Years episode, but these are my most listened to Wonder Years albums.
Oh,
which is kind of shocking, but it's true. And they just hit me in a way, and I don't even know like why I love them so much, but I do. Like, I love those EPs so much. I own both of them on vinyl, and so I play them constantly. And yeah, they're both on like white vinyl, which is very cool.
Oh, very nice.
But yeah, I play them constantly. They're always like in my top Spotify things. Like, I just listen to them constantly. Anytime I put any song by the Wonder Years that has like a Burst and Decay acoustic version, I'm like, anytime I put one of those songs on a playlist, like it's never a skip, you know, like I'm just constantly listening to them. So yeah, I kind of just felt like they had to go on this list somewhere because I listen to them freaking constantly.
Yeah.
But they are kind of low on this list because I think that they don't exist in a vacuum, which I think I was explaining this on the Wonder Years episode, but I like them because they are acoustic versions of other songs. Like, if this just existed and the regular version didn't exist, I'm not sure that I would like be as attached to them. If that makes sense.
Yeah. They are definitely like obviously different versions of songs that already exist, but in a way they are their own experience too.
Yeah.
So
yeah. So yeah, the Burst and Decay EPs, they're like 6 songs each, so I just put them as one album, but it's a little bit of a cheat.
Yeah, I actually don't have any EPs on here, but that's kind of interesting. That's kind of cool that you picked that. Okay, so 19 for me is Arctic Monkeys A.M.
Okay. I also have Arctic Monkeys on my 11 through 20 list.
Okay.
So
one that didn't make the list, but is one of my favorite Arctic Monkeys albums is it called Favorite Worst Nightmare? I love that album a lot. It's one of their older ones, but that one didn't make this list, although I will mention it because it is definitely an honorable mention.
Yeah.
But A.M. made the list because when it came out, actually the first Arctic Monkeys song I ever heard was Arabella. And that was on like some radio show, some like YouTuber's radio show in high school, and I loved it. And then I got this album, and I was definitely like it was. I definitely felt like I was cool and different, even though everyone knew this album. But it was one of those moments, you know.
Yeah.
But and then I bought every single Arctic Monkeys album after that, and then like I love all their other stuff too.
Yeah.
But this one was I was just so specifically obsessed with it for so long, and I still love it. And for me, it still holds up. Yeah. And I genuinely think that musically they peaked here, in my opinion.
So too.
This is
I would agree.
the Arctic Monkeys album. And yeah, I love it a lot. And I love the whole thing. For me, it's one of those I could listen to it all the way through. So
yeah. I don't know if I specifically said this, but R.E.M by Arctic Monkeys is the album that I have on my 11 through 20 list. It's higher, it's a little higher up, but it is it is also in the same vicinity.
Well, and
because I feel the same way.
And like I said, it could be a little bit higher, it could be a little bit lower. These are kind of mixed up, but so what is that'd be 18, right? Is the next one?
My number 18 is Weezer's The Blue Album. And
which one is that?
It's their first album. It's the one with the sweater song on it. It's the one with Say It Ain't So.
I didn't know that those were from their first album. I don't know Weezer that well. Like, I know them relatively well, but I don't know like whole albums. So
I unfortunately do know so much about Weezer. No, this is their debut album, and I think this is the best Weezer album.
Okay.
Which is interesting because they have a lot of albums. They have like 15 albums or something like that.
Oh my gosh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. Well, they've been putting out like 2 a year for the last 3 years. Which is like absurd. But I think the Blue Album by Weezer is peak Weezer. It like does what Weezer is trying to do so well, and I think it's because they made this album like before they were famous, because it was their first album. And so they made this album, and it was like very authentically like what Weezer just was going to be.
They didn't have any expectations or anything.
And I feel like they got really successful from the Blue Album, and then they've been trying to recreate that for 20 years, and they've been moderately successful, I think. But I think the Blue Album is like peak Weezer. And I think the best Weezer song is the Sweater Song, which is on the Blue Album, and it's also the first Weezer song that was ever written. Is the Sweater Song?
I didn't know that. Wow.
Yeah. And I think it's like genuinely like the best Weezer song. And I'm like, how did you guys just like do that on the first try?
That's how they knew it was meant to be.
Yeah. So anyways, that's my number 18 is the Blue Album. How about you?
My number 18 is the 1975 self-titled album.
Okay.
Yeah. It was probably around the same time actually that I discovered the Arctic Monkeys, is when I discovered the 1975. And I actually discovered them because a band that I loved at the time did a cover of their song. And so I looked them up, and I was like, this guy is incredibly British.
Yeah.
And then it was just like, that was it.
That's fair.
And I just started listening. And this is when I was still discovering music through like YouTube. So I pretty much found like all of their songs that I could find on YouTube and listened to all of them. Until I like got the CD. But that album, I mean, I still love it. That album,
it's a good album.
Yeah, I know it very, very well. It was played many, many times on my little boombox, and I went through a pretty hard. I mean, they're still one of my favorite bands, but I went through a pretty hardcore 1975 phase for a while. And I've seen them live a couple times, and both times have been absolutely phenomenal experiences. Where I believe I mentioned on our band's podcast that I cried
so much
at those. and Maddie Healy is a very interesting human being to me. And just everything about that album like still sticks with me. So it's on the list.
Very nice. I have that album in my honorable mentions. It is important to me too. My number 17 is a little bit of another wacky one. And it is the album called An Evening with John Denver, which is a live album. And this is where I kind of was like, should I put this on this list or not? Because it's a live album, so it's not like an album, but it's the only John Denver album that made it onto my lists. And it's a live album, And the reason I like it so much is because in between the songs, he talks, and it's like extremely wholesome, and it's just like good vibes. Like it just like kind of calms me down. It like makes me very nostalgic. He like has this line that just I don't know why this is so important to me, but it just is. But he has this line that he says, because the concert happened in like LA or something. And he like is on stage and he finishes the song and he's like, I feel very good about being with the ocean again. Like we got to LA and I got to see the ocean again, and I feel very good about being with the ocean again. And that line, I think, it is exactly why this is like number 17 on my list. You know what I mean? Like it just makes me feel so at peace, like the whole album. It also is the only John Denver album that has one of my favorite John Denver songs on it. Like that song has never been released on an album, but it's on this live album. So yeah, I don't know. It's kind of a weird one, but it is like an album experience because it's a live
definitely.
album.
Yeah.
So, you can't just like listen to one song off of it. It's an experience. You have to listen to it top to bottom.
Yeah. I get that, because like I think that Nirvana's best album is their MTV Unplugged, and like that's not, that's a live album, which that one didn't make the list, but that is a good album. So like I get it. That's cool.
Yeah. What's your number 17?
My number 17 is Taylor Swift's Speak Now.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, I honestly could not choose between Speak Now and Fearless were on my initial list. Wow. But Fearless, actually, I knocked off the list, although it's like definitely an honorable mention. But I picked Speak Now because it was so like, I mean, do I have to elaborate?
It is. It just is.
I was there's just something about being a young girl and a fan of Taylor Swift when she was in the Speak Now era, and so was I. And like definitely my sister and I went through very hardcore Taylor Swift phase, and it was about that time. And there's key songs on it, but it's also just the whole thing. It just means a lot to me as like a young girl, and especially that was around the time where I was becoming more and more obsessed with music.
Mm-hmm.
And so she was really one of the artists that had whole albums that I was obsessed with, like that I had, that we had discovered and become obsessed with, like one of the first.
Yeah.
So yeah, but that specific Taylor Swift album has made the list.
Yeah. That is not one of the Taylor Swift albums in my on my document, but I do have Taylor Swift that will be coming up at some point. So
good. As expected.
Yes. My number 16 is R.E.M. by the Arctic Monkeys.
Oh, okay. Nice.
Yeah. So that's where it ranked for me, is number 16.
When did you start listening to that one?
I started listening to R.E.M. more in like early college, I think. Mm-hmm. I had this friend in high school that saw the Arctic Monkeys on the R.E.M. tour, I believe.
Ooh.
And so I was sort of like aware of them, but it wasn't until like early college, I think, that I heard Are You Mine probably first. And I don't exactly know when I heard it. Probably just, that was still in kind of freshman year of college, was like the end of my era of just like listening to random music like on Pandora and stuff like that. And I want to say that Are You Mine came up on that, and I recognized the album art.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was like, oh, this is this band, this is this album. Like, okay.
Yeah. That's another thing about it, is the album art is iconic.
It really is.
Just like, everything about it, the art, it's just iconic. Yeah. Number 16 for me is Muse, Origin of Symmetry.
Ooh, okay. That's a good one.
Yeah. My sister and I, were like, that was definitely a band of all time for me when I was in high school. Very, very, very into Muse. And I don't know why I kind of dropped off a little bit. I still like Muse, and if they release new stuff, I make a point to, you know, get to it eventually to try to keep up with them. I had a chance to see them years ago, and I'm crushed that I have not been able to see them, especially when I was like deep hardcore, like they were one of my favorite bands. But in high school they definitely were. And this I actually had like 4 Muse albums on my list at first.
Wow.
Because I was looking at all of them, because it's been a while since I've like listened to whole albums or even listened to that much Muse. But I was looking through them and just remembering, you know, how into the albums I was and how much I listened to them, and all the songs individually and all the albums as an experience, you know, all that kind of stuff. And then I think I have 2 stayed on the list, I think. And this was one of them, Origin of Symmetry.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I don't know any Muse albums by name, I don't think. But I definitely know Muse, and I definitely know like a handful of songs by Muse. And I've never been listening to a Muse song and been like, this ain't for me. You know, like I'm always like into it, but I definitely am not like I'm not as familiar with their whole discography. I know Abe has seen them live before, and definitely in the past has been really into Muse as well.
That would have been amazing. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. But
okay.
Yeah.
So number 15 is the next one?
Yes, my number 15 is Automatic for the People by R.E.M.
Oh, some of these you're saying the name of the album and I like don't know should I start with the album name or the artist name? I feel like now I should start with the album name.
I don't know. Yeah.
Anyway, because I've just realized we're doing like opposite, which is funny.
Oh, yeah.
But
this is just how I have it like written down on my notes, I guess.
That's funny.
But,
anyway, R.E.M.
Yeah, I love R.E.M. I think that they are not underrated, because like obviously they're not underrated. They're R.E.M.
Yeah.
But in terms of like, I don't know. I feel like I hear a lot about the Smashing Pumpkins and not enough about R.E.M. You know what I'm saying?
How are they related?
They're just like from the 90s.
Oh, okay. Okay. But and it's also what's kind of funny is I listened to an I only know like 2 songs, like the R.E.M. songs.
Yeah.
And I listened to an album because it was like on the plane to England.
Oh yeah.
And I actually like I didn't hate it, but I like didn't love it that much. Which is
that's fair.
Kind of funny. I don't know. But
yeah.
I don't know which one this is, because I don't know any albums.
It's not the one with Losing My Religion on.
Okay.
It's the one with Everybody Hurts. It's the
that's
one
R.E.M. I don't know if I even knew that.
Yeah, and like Night Swimming and Man on the Moon.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. I like this album so much. And it like is kind of a weird random one to choose, I guess. But like I have listened to this, like I don't even own it on CD. I don't even own it on vinyl. Like I don't own it. Okay. But I've literally just like listened to it so many times. And I don't know what it is about Automatic for the People, but I think it's so good. And there's all these like little riffs in it, and I'm like, it's not just like, you know, 90s soft rock. Like it is 90s soft rock, but it's also like doing something else. It's like pushing just a little bit. Yeah, I don't know. For some reason, I'm like a little bit obsessed with R.E.M. Like I just love them so much.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know.
Is this like from your childhood, or is it like a more recent pick, or?
I would say high school me was more into R.E.M. than I am now, but I'm still into them.
Okay.
You know?
Okay.
Like I definitely listen to like 90s music a lot. So whenever I'm listening to 90s music, I'm listening to R.E.M., you know?
Yeah. Okay. I get it.
That's the vibe.
Okay. My number 15 is way different. It is Neck Deep's Life's Not Out to Get You.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah. Neck Deep is pretty important to me. They were like the band that, or one of the first bands when I was getting really into like that kind of 2010s crappy pop punk stuff.
Yeah.
Neck Deep was one of the first bands. Life's Not Out to Get You was not out yet when I found them.
Yeah.
It was just like their very first 2 albums, or maybe the first one was like an EP kind of. And so it was those albums, but then Life's Not Out to Get You came out, and I was like, I'm pretty sure they peaked here. I love Neck Deep, but this is their peak album. And maybe they'll release one that's even more peak someday. I don't know.
Who's to say?
Yeah, but this one is the Neck Deep album, and as an experience, like the entire album,
yes,
it is, you know, it's one of the, like, not only the albums for me, but one of the like this specific genre of like alt rock, pop punk, you know, crappy pop punk stuff.
Yeah,
this is the one for me.
I agree a lot, and I think I will save most of my thoughts about this album for later. Because
is it also on your list?
It is on my list, and it's not in today's episode. So
okay. This is definitely an album that could have been a lot higher. This is one that was really hard to place, but it ended up at the 15 just tentatively.
But I feel that.
Yeah.
I feel that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have a lot of emotional feelings about Life's Not Out to Get You by Neck Deep. So I'm sure I will be chatting about that in the future.
Oh yeah.
My
14.
Number 14 is at one point in my life in high school, this would have been my number 1 album.
Okay.
And it is Pretty Odd by Panic at the Disco.
That one is also on my list.
Okay. Wow.
Wait.
Yes.
It's also number 14 on my list.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh my god. Okay, so we have the same number.
It like took me, I was like, wait a second. I thought it was higher, but it's actually
That's funny actually that we put it in the exact same spot at 20.
That's really funny. That's really funny.
So you tell me why you ranked
I had
Pretty
3
Odd
Panic. Yeah. I had 3 Panic albums on my list initially. Because how is one to pick?
Yeah.
And well, Pretty Odd, I mean, it's just, I mean, I personally think it's a musical masterpiece. It's incredible. It is the Panic at the Disco Sgt. Pepper. 100%.
I agree. 1,000%.
Like, they were definitely taking the same drugs that the Beatles were taking.
Literally. One time I wrote something about a bunch of Panic at the Disco albums, and I specifically described Pretty Odd as Beatles on drugs vibes.
Yeah.
So I agree completely.
Yeah. So, and I mean, I think it's just beautiful, and Panic is hard to rank as well because each one of their albums is so different.
Yeah.
And so it's like, you know, they all mean different things as an experience to me as well. But Pretty Odd, it used to be, as the same for you, higher on my list. But it definitely had to be on the list, and it definitely had to be high on the list because I mean, I discovered it in high school. Actually, I discovered Panic at the Disco when they released Too Weird to Live.
Too Rare to Die.
Yeah. And they had just released that album, and I like bought it when it was new. And I already knew some of their older stuff. And when this album came out, and I listened to it, and I was like, this is weird because it doesn't sound like any of their older stuff. And then I was to discover, the more that I listened to them, is because every single album is different. Yeah.
Yeah, I think Pretty Odd as an album experience is unique.
Yes.
Because it is so, like, the lyrics are weird, and they're just like a part of the ambiance, you know, like they're not
definitely.
I just think Pretty Odd was made to be an art piece more than it was made to be, like, you know, a pop punk album or something, right? Like, it's not.
Yeah.
It's much more of like a concept album where they were like, okay, let's be a little weird, let's be a little Beatles inspired, let's be a little, you know, high on drugs. And, I don't know. Pretty Odd has been my favorite Panic at the Disco album since I discovered it, and it's maintained its position as my favorite Panic at the Disco album. And I was a very big Panic at the Disco fan in high school. Like,
I was too. They were definitely like top 3 my favorite bands in high school. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Me too. And yeah, Pretty Odd. As soon as I listened to A Fever You Can't Sweat Out first, because I think I knew I Write Scenes Not Tragedies first. That was like my intro to Panic at the Disco, and then I was like, oh, let me like listen to that album, and I liked it. And Pretty Odd was already out, but I listened to Pretty Odd, and then I was like, ooh, okay, but I like Pretty Odd even more than A Fever You Can't Sweat Out.
It's so different. Like,
it's so different.
Were they all the same members with both of those albums? Because I know with each album, like, how do you write that and then turn around and then they're so different?
Yeah. But both specifically, good. Yeah, they are both good. Yeah. There's something specific about Pretty Odd in the way that it is kind of more acoustic, but still like very theatrical. I think the one thing that like unites all of Panic at the Disco's music is their like commitment to theater,
you know like, what, that's a really good way to describe it. And I think that also is probably a big reason why I enjoy that and all their other albums so much, is because I feel like I've been realizing relatively recently that I like theatrical type music, like not theater, like musical theater music, but music that has a theatrical element to it. Yeah, I
think especially early Panic at the Disco, like their first 3 albums are so theatrical, different. Like they're all 3 different, but they are extremely theatrical. And I think then they kind of like fell off that just a little bit, and then came back to it with Death of a Bachelor. Death of a Bachelor is theatrical. And so I think that's why I was kind of like, oh, I'm back into Panic at the Disco. And then I don't know, I've sort of fallen off the Panic at the Disco train now. I mean, they haven't released music in a long time,
right? But, I mean, it's because their last album was not the best. No. I mean, it was the worst Panic at the Disco album for sure.
Yeah.
And also they've been radio silent since then. Nothing.
Yeah, and like so, been, I don't know, there's like been some talk about some like, things that Brendan Urie has done that probably he shouldn't be doing, and I'm not here to comment on that, but it sounds like he kind of got a little too famous and then kind of got a little full of himself. And again, I'm not here to comment on that. I'm just here to say, early Panic at the Disco was really important to me as a young person. And I think it's hilarious that we both put Pretty Odd as number 14.
Yeah, specifically. Like, not only is it on the list, it's at 14. Yeah. Okay.
So awesome. I'm glad we agree. We are best friends for a reason.
Yeah. Okay. What is 13?
My number 13 is Welcome to the Neighborhood by Boston Manor.
Oh my gosh. You know what? That is not on my list, surprisingly, but it should be. It's definitely one of the albums that I looked at and I was like, this is almost on the list. And it's on the list if the list was longer, and if the list was ranked, like if it was, okay, sorry, I need to finish one sentence. If this was top albums of right now, it would be on that's how I'll say that. If it was top albums of right now, 100% it would be on the list.
This album, I know that we sort of talked about this a little bit because I remember Boston Manor was on your list of artists.
Oh yeah.
And we both knew about Boston Manor. We saw Boston Manor in concert before this album came out together. And so we knew about Boston Manor. We liked Boston Manor. And then this album came out, I remember, while I was in Hungary, or right before I went to Hungary or something like that. So we were not in the same vicinity. We were apart. And I listened to Welcome to the Neighborhood and I was like, oh my God, this album is so good. And I remember telling you, have you heard the new Boston Manor album? It's so good. And you were like, oh yeah. And then like a month later or something, you were like, oh my god, I just listened to the new Boston Manor album.
I know, like, have you heard it? It's so good. Yeah, like I don't know why I was so late. I don't know, sometimes I'm just like that, it just takes a while for me to get around to it, but oh my gosh, it is, it's definitely a top album now.
It is, and
it might have been a little bit of an oversight, like this could have been on this list somewhere, but yeah.
Specifically the song England's Dreaming is iconic, and I just have to say that. But yeah, and then we saw Boston Manor headline for the Welcome to the Neighborhood tour, I believe.
I think that's what it was.
And it was very good. Craziest concert. Well, maybe not the craziest, but very much one of the craziest concerts I've ever been to. Not really because of Boston Manor, much more because of Heart Attack Man. But that's But yeah, so I associate Welcome to the Neighborhood with that concert. Because I remember we were still at the front when they played England's Dreaming, and that was very iconic of us. And then we went to the back because we were dying. So yeah, I love that album so much. I have it on CD and I love it a lot.
I have it on CD as well. Yeah, it's very, very good. Yeah. Okay, 13 for me is, I'm gonna pronounce this wrong, so please forgive me. I'm just gonna pronounce it how I do. Number 13 for me is Fall Out Boy's Folie. Yeah, I don't speak French, so that's how I pronounce it, but yeah, and I think my opinions of Fall Out Boy are very nuanced. They're very complex because Fall Out Boy is one of my favorite bands of all time. I love them very, very dearly with my whole heart. And this album for me, to me, is their best musically. If you look at like the complexity of the music and the rhythms and just musically, I think that this is their best album. Because I've tried playing, most songs on bass, like looking up tabs and most Fall Out Boy. And when I go through the songs that are on this album, they're definitely the more complex and fun bass lines, like, are all on this album. And I think I know that at the time they were being very experimental, and I was not a fan when they released this album, but from what I've gathered, it was a little bit taken like not super well by a lot of fans, and taken a little bit weird, and a lot of people really didn't like it because it was experimental and it was different from their first few albums that they had already released. But for me, experiencing it later and not having, those expectations or anything, I'm like, this is incredible. How could you not like this album? To me, it is absolutely incredible musically and lyrically super. I mean, I love Pete Wentz's lyrics, and to me, he is like very much lyrical genius. I think he's done a lot of really awesome stuff lyrically, and it's got a lot of really weird stuff in it that's super fun. It's got some of that theatricality that I love, with like American Sweethearts and something like and stuff like that. And so it really does it for me in all the in all the, I had like, I think there's 3 different Fall Out Boy albums on this list. There might only be 2 now, but
that's fair.
Yeah.
I have a couple of artist repeats, but not very many. I tried not to just like list every single album by one band.
It was so hard with actually, I think with Fall Out Boy might have been the hardest, and Muse. I had so many, and I'm like, I have to, they simply cannot all be on this list. I
definitely have some Fall Out Boy on my list. Not yet, but soon. And that album specifically is not on my list, but I agree with you. I think it is the most like interesting in terms of like the musicality of it.
And this is definitely one that could be a lot higher, but as we get higher here is when I started having to make really hard decisions, and so it's a little bit like this could be way up and other songs, so there could be a lot of ties here that I simply couldn't happen. So same.
Okay, my number 12 is an album that I think will be on your list as well. And I'm not sure where exactly it would be, but I think it's going to be on your list as well. Okay. And that is Boom Boom Room Side A by Palaye Royale.
It is on my list. I think you'll be surprised where it is on my list, but it is.
Oh. Yeah. Okay. Yes. So this album I learned about because of you. And when I started listening to Palaye Royale, this was the only album out because you told me about it and we started listening. Well, you already listened to them, but you know, I started listening, and then that's when they started putting out other albums like after that. So my intro to Palaye Royale was this album and this album only. And actually they have like some other random album that's out, right? Or like an EP or something.
They had a few songs like an EP before that album, but that is their first full-length album, so
yeah. Gotcha. I listened to this album a lot.
Yeah.
As a full album, because I remember in England I remember this one day that we just sat out on the grass and like listened to Boom Boom Room Side A like twice in a row.
Yeah. And now that you're saying this, I'm thinking this album should be higher on my list than I have it, but again, very, very hard decisions. So
yeah. I love this album a lot. Every single song is like a banger.
Yeah, it really is. I remember discovering them because I discovered them because of Warped Tour, which is how I discovered a lot of bands that I like. R.I.P. Warped Tour. Yeah. Now it's like now when I discover music, it's like weird now because for quite a few years, a chunk of years in high school, or pretty much all of high school, is like I used Warped Tour to discover bands. I would go through all the bands that were going to be playing that year and listen to some of their songs and figure out whether or not I wanted to try to see them or if I really like them. And Palaye Royale was like, okay, this band is going on the playlist and I'm definitely going to see them and I'm going to listen to them after Warped Tour. And they're probably going to be one of my favorites now. So just like immediately. Yeah. And every single song, Mr. Dr. Man, that's what it's called, right? Why does that sound weird to say out loud? Was the first song that I heard by them. And it's, I mean, immediately just like, they are
iconic. And I think so it's not that I think that this is like their peak album, because I don't think that. Like I think that their other albums are like going in a direction that I like a lot. So it's like I do not think that they've like gotten worse since Boom Boom Room Side A. Like that is not what I mean. But this album specifically to me is peak for me. If that makes sense. Like I will probably never like experience a Palaye Royale album the way that I experience Boom Boom Room Side A.
Yeah, I get that.
Because it's just so connected to springtime in England and like the beginning of our friendship, because you like showed me them, and I remember we like listened to them while we sat in the grass. We listened to them like on our phones out loud as we walked home from shows, and it just like is very tied to that, and I was very like immersed in it, I guess. And like we talked about all the songs on Boom Boom Room Side A, like we like dissected them. Like I think I just will never experience a Palaye Royale album that way, and so to me, Boom Boom Room Side A will always be like the peak Palaye Royale album.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Okay, good thoughts. Yeah, and now I'm definitely thinking, yep, that album should have been higher. So when you hear it, just know it belongs higher on the list. But anyway,
okay.
My number 12 album is My Chemical Romance 3 Cheers for Sweet Revenge.
Yes.
Yeah, which again also could have been higher. Definitely one of the albums of all time for me. Which would be Palaye Royale's as well, would be like of right now if we were doing right now.
Yes.
But yeah, 3 Cheers. I mean, My Chemical Romance is like my top band, so of course their albums are going to be on this list. And for a while, shortly after I had discovered them, and in high school when I was very hardcore listening to their albums on repeat, and like just really, really getting into them, 3 Cheers and Welcome to the Black Parade became kind of like tied. Like I couldn't pick which one I really liked better. But now if I reflect back on it and what I think of them now and what they meant to me when I heard them and this and that, they are around this spot on the list. But yeah, 3 Cheers, it's that theatricality that we were talking about that I've been pinning down as, you know, what I really enjoy about my favorite bands and my favorite music is My Chemical Romance is gotta be one of the most theatrical bands of all time. And I know that's bold to say, but I'm saying it because I really think
I agree with you.
If you, I mean, and the instrumentation, of course, but especially the vocals, I genuinely think there are a limited number of vocalists that just can harness this specific level of emotion and theatricality in their vocals. And Gerard Way is perfect at it.
Yeah.
So good at just this like raw, such intense energy in his vocals. And of course it's like a weird, messed up story thing, and the lyrics are weird, the stories are weird, and the music's fun, and it's very angsty, which like I experience.
Yeah.
You know, I like that kind of stuff. And so this is just like, this is the peak, you know, of what it is. Like no one else has done anything like this specific album. Like I don't, what else is like this? I really don't think there's anything. So yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay, we are at the top of our lists for today.
Yes.
Now. So our top of the bottom 10 of the top is number 11, and for me that is 21st Century Breakdown by Green Day.
Oh, nice. That is also on my list, but you'll hear that later.
Next time. Yes. 21st Century Breakdown by Green Day is such an iconic
it really
album.
Is. Yeah.
It is so good.
Yeah.
I think that there are 2 Green Day albums that are absolutely no skip, absolutely like foundational for me as a person, and also probably for like pop punk, I don't know. But 21st Century Breakdown is so good. I remember when it came out. I remember my mom buying it. I was already obsessed with Green Day when 21st Century Breakdown came out, and 21 Guns was my alarm clock sound for
my God.
an entire year.
What was it about 21 Guns that connected with us as literal children who had absolutely zero personal experience with the lyrical makeup of that song?
I don't know, but I was obsessed with it.
Yeah.
And the thing about 21st Century Breakdown, and I think the other album that I will talk about Green Day at some point, is they hold up. 21st Century Breakdown holds up. I was obsessed with it when I was freaking like 9 years old or whatever, and I am like obsessed with it now today. You know, like I could listen to that album just over and over and over again and I would not get tired of it. And like I'm constantly finding new things that I really like connect with and appreciate. Like the song 21st Century Breakdown, I like did not feel like an adult until I listened to 21st Century Breakdown like last year kind of randomly, and I was like, is this what it means to be an adult?
And it really like you can I love that because I feel very similarly that you can really grow with this album and you discover new things that aren't new, but it's like you understand them differently as you experience more, and they can still follow you and like be relevant in those times. This album
is just like absolutely everything to me. Also my orchestra class in like 9th grade played 21 Guns for an orchestra concert. I'm like just remembering that right now. But so the violas got like, you know, like the bridge that's like, I'm not gonna sing it, but you know, like the instrumental bridge part.
I think so.
The violas got that part, and
okay. I'm thinking of it now. It's in my head. Yeah, that's really fun.
That's just another side note about one of the songs
on that
awesome album. But I love 21st Century Breakdown by Green Day so freaking much.
It's actually it's my favorite Green Day album.
I love that album a lot, and I love another Green Day album a lot as well. And so
I'm sure we'll be talking more about Green Day next episode.
We will. We definitely will.
Okay, so my number 11 album for my entire whole life to this day, from when I was born to this day, is Lifehouse Smoke and Mirrors.
That's just a fact. Yeah. This album is not on my list, but there are albums extremely similar to this vibe that are on my list.
Yeah. It's a mom rock album. It was played in the car. I don't even know when it was released, but as far as I am concerned, since I was born. I'm sure I know it was released like after that, but like, you know, pretty much since I was born. And so I don't even know if I can like name all of the songs off of it, because like the way that I've experienced this album most of my life was like front to back, like in a car or whatever, you know. So but it's very important to me in like, I think the development of my brain and what kind of genre of music I like, and just, you know, like lots of car rides and yeah, so that's why it's important to me. But it's more of like a childhood one. It was pulled from, you know, from like what I would have picked as my top albums, you know, when I was younger, like growing up. And
do you know when this album was released? It was released in 2010.
So it was actually later than I think it was.
Yeah.
Wow. It's like, it's so weird that it's like, I feel like I heard this as a child, because I was in junior high when that came out. Then is when yeah. But so it must have been mostly in high school listening to it with mom. But yeah. Wow. Yeah, but awesome. And she went to see them. It was Lifehouse, and I want to say it was like Chris Daughtry, and didn't take us.
Rude, mom. Come on.
Yeah. But yeah. Anyway, so okay. Do you want to list off our?
Yes, let's list our runners up. Let's just quick fire go back and forth and say runners up.
Okay. And so this is from 21 onwards. Let's start at 21.
Same. Okay. Tallahassee by the Mountain Goats.
Okay. Muse, Black Holes and Revelations.
Folklore by Taylor Swift.
Mayday Parade, A Lesson in Romantics.
I also have Mayday Parade.
Oh, really? Oh my gosh. Awesome. I love that. I saw them play that in like the tour where they played the whole thing, and that really did it for me. Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Oh, so is it my turn? Are you?
Oh yeah, you go now again.
Okay. I think I might pronounce this one wrong too, but Brand New, Deja and Tendu.
From Under the Cork Tree by Fall Out Boy.
Oh. Panic at the Disco, Vices and Virtues.
Okay. You're So Beautiful When You Sleep, blah 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 by the 1975.
Oh, good. Frank Iero and the Celebration, Stomach Aches.
Okay, I'm Sick by Bad Flower.
Oh, good choice. That one's not on the list, but it's definitely like, you know, like it's an album that I would Anyway, Panic at the Disco, A Fever You Can't Sweat Out.
Yeah, that one's on my list, but in like 2 down. But Safe and Sound by Lower Than Atlantis.
Oh, good. Maroon 5, Overexposed.
Yeah.
That one was big in high school. That was like literally the whole album. It was a mom album, and it was also like very obsessed. Yeah.
Back on Top by the Front Bottoms.
Oh, good. Aqua, Aquarium.
Oh, I've like never heard of that.
It has the Barbie song on it.
Oh my god.
I don't know if it's like the original Barbie song, but it's like a full song, and it's the Barbie song, and it was a childhood album. And like if I played that now, I like would maybe still know like all the words to all the songs. But we're doing albums of all time, so I had to include Aquarium by Aqua because
wow.
It's like very obnoxious now, because it has like one guy singer with a really low voice and one female singer with like a really high voice. Anyway, wow.
A Fever Can't Sweat Out is next on my list, but but then my last one on here is Welcome to the Black Parade.
Oh, okay. Interesting. My last 2 on this list are All Time Low, Last Young Renegade. Okay. And Palaye Royale's Boom Boom Room Side A.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. Which, like I said, could be so much higher.
Yeah.
And would be if it was like top 10 of all time. But yeah, those are my like basically 21 through 30. And then, oh my gosh, there are so many honorable mentions that could be on here that I don't even have written down because it's like, we don't have time for that.
Yeah. Same.
But,
okay. Well,
yeah.
so next time we shall talk about our actual top 10.
Yes.
As they stand, now that we've done literally an entire episode of things that we would like to mention that are not in the, in the top 10.
Yeah. That's just how passionate we are about this, which I love about us.
That's right. I know. I love that we were like, okay, we're gonna do the top 10 albums, and then we both like just could not help it but make a freaking ginormous list. So
yeah. I'm gonna pull a whole Rolling Stone and just do like 100 of all time. Yeah. Not really. That'd be, oh my God, that'd be too hard. Yeah. Anyway.
But so anyways, I think that's all we have time for today. And next time we shall talk about our actual top 10. And until then, I love you.
I love you too.
Goodbye.
Bye.